Good afternoon, everyone. 2.8 billion. 2.8 billion is the number of people that are facing food insecurity today. That's 28% of the world population. And for that reason, I am very excited today to moderate a panel of leading experts that are helping to solve this problem, this crisis, if you will, with their disruptive technologies and really move us towards that UN Sustainable Development Goal of hopefully no hunger. With that, my name is Nidhi Chadda, founder and CEO of Enzo Advisors. We are a climate and sustainability advisory practice, helping corporates and investors build in sustainability and understanding the so what of sustainability to drive financial impact. I also support RGS, Richmond Global Sciences, as their chief impact officer to further quantify impact. With me, I have my panelists. Mofdy, we'll start with you for a quick bio intro.
Pardon me?
A quick bio intro.
Yeah, my name is Mofdy Morgan. I'm a mechanical engineer for over 38 years. I immigrated to the United States in the early 90s. I started working in a career like a mechanical engineer. Later on, I have my own mechanical construction business. And in 2003, I started to shift from the mechanical engineering business to something totally different, which is basically planting, farming, soil, etc. In 2006, I have brought to the world a new product, a third generation of soil conditioner, which is basically something in the ag business that led me to study a lot in chemistry and geology. And in 2008, we have a product that have an 8 patent worldwide, which is the new era of turning desert land into farming.
Thank you. And Horia?
Yeah, my name is Horia Pitulea.
Sorry.
My background is in electronics engineering. After a few years as an engineer, I went for an MBA and I became after a banker working with American banks like Chase Manhattan and Citibank. And after that, I joined industry in various management and board positions in industries from metals and mining and oil and gas. Since 2022, I'm the CEO of Green Tech International, which is the largest private investor in geothermal energy in Europe, with a portfolio of 83 deep geothermal wells and an installed power of over 300 megawatt thermal power.
And Robert.
Hello, so I'm Robert Kupstas. I'm co-founder of Pure Harvest Smart Farms and Ocean Harvest. Pure Harvest is a high-tech greenhouse and vertical farming company. We're based between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but our farms, we have 4 farms in Abu Dhabi in Al Ain and 2 farms in Saudi Arabia. And we're the market leader in specialty produce, tomatoes, berries, and salads, and also currently focused on sustainable seafood. So using land-based recirculating aquaculture system technology to produce high-value species of fish. Thank you.
I'll start with the following question. We had a really interesting conversation in our prep where we were discussing, what could be the solution to solve the crisis and those numbers that I talked about and opened up with. And I want to ask each and every one of the panelists, if you had to call out one solution, whether it's the open field farming or it's greenhouses, which solution do you think can be scaled to really reduce that inequality across food insecurity that we're seeing? I'll start with you, Mofdy.
It's always very good to diversifying, meaning geothermal, not geothermal, I'm sorry, greenhouse and open farming. When it gets to strategic or most important products like wheat, alfalfa, corn, potatoes, we have to go for open farming, open field farming. Scalability is basically in our technology and in our business, we can do products enough for 100 acres per day, and that can be scaled up 10 times. In greenhouses, scalability also would be good. However, I don't know the limitation about greenhouse, about the initial investment and about how much of vertical expansion. But I see, from my opinion, only that scaling up would be going in much better in open field farming.
Horia, something tells me you disagree with that.
Yeah, actually, I think the answer is twofold because we need both forms, open field and greenhouses. In greenhouses, you can grow vegetables and some fruits, while in the open field, you can grow grains and the other kind of fruits. I would point out some of the advantages of the greenhouses because this is the business I am in. So a greenhouse, it's a very intensive and very efficient factory for producing vegetables and fruits. It uses 10 times less land, 10 times less water, much less pesticides than you use in the open field for the same production. Also, in high-tech hydroponic greenhouses, you don't need land. You don't need agri-land to use agri-land in order to build a greenhouse. So it's more versatile from this point of view, and it doesn't take over land from the open field agriculture. Taking into account the climate change, it is obvious that the surface for open field agriculture is decreasing because of desertification, because other industries, including energy, is putting pressure on this land, is reclaiming this land for the other purposes. So for this part of the agriculture, increased productivity and more efficient use of resources like water, fertilizers, and pesticides is the direction to go. I remember from the school when I was learning about the crop per hectare for wheat, for instance, the record there is overpassed by 2-3 times these days. So things are moving that direction in order to improve the food security of the world.
And Robert, I'm going to pivot slightly here and ask you about some of the challenges. So Horia's comments touched upon some of them in terms of the investment and the maintenance expenses. You tell us a little bit about that journey of navigating through some of those challenges and convince the audience today of who wants to invest in climate tech why greenhouses might be the future.
Thank you. Well, I would absolutely echo Horia's views. So, look, the short answer is we need to pick the right tool based on what you're producing and where you're producing, what conditions you're dealing with. Our company, we're completely technology agnostic. For us, it's all about being the lowest cost, technically acceptable producer. In the case of, you look at the Gulf, you look at the UAE, you look at the temperature and the humidity profile, and you simply cannot produce open field year-round using open field farming. You need some level of environmental control in order to be able to produce half of the year. Controlling the environment for us also, what it helps us do is actually pick seeds and genetics which are optimized more for flavor and quality, whereas all of the local regional farmers here are typically selecting seeds that are temperature resistant, and they're not always the most flavorful. But look, the challenge is, I think we, as many companies in our space, we started during a very low interest rate macroeconomic environment, where money was more easily available. In the last 3 to 4 years, that has it's become more difficult for companies like ours to raise money, and simply because of just the higher interest rates. And the big challenge with us is it is capital intensive. There's a lot of infrastructure required, and I think the key really is demonstrating structural profitability, right? Many of the really successful companies in the greenhouse space, if you look at it globally, have grown organically over decades. And they're family businesses, multi-generational. So if you're trying to apply a kind of a venture-backed, high-growth startup, tech startup model to this space, it's very, very difficult. And also in the end, right, people don't eat technology. So, you know, you might be interested in the technical aspects, but in the end, consumers, you know, they're looking for taste and cost, and they're not willing to pay, you know, any kind of a green premium or anything that's sort of like marketed, right, as being high-tech or sustainable.
Well, you touched upon the temperature controls, and I do want to shift to talking about climate risk. So one of the key themes that I talked about coming out of New York Climate Week was how resilience is the new sustainability. And the focus really comes down to risk. We've seen trillions of dollars of damages across the world on climate risk. So Horia, going back to you, how are you navigating through climate risk and climate change, frankly, in your entire operations at this point?
I would look at this from two angles. One is the sensitivity of your cultivation system to the climate change, and the other one is the impact you have on the climate change. So talking about the first point, greenhouse is a controlled environment, agriculture, so from this point of view, it's much less sensitive to the climate change than it is open field. And this is one of the main advantages of this system. And then talking about the impact, our solution to use geothermal energy for heating or cooling the greenhouse, it works both ways. It's a sustainable solution because geothermal it's a green energy and regenerable energy. And the other thing is that by replacing fossil fuels with geothermal, so the CO2 footprint is close to zero. So in our projects, we use the geothermal water for heating the greenhouse, for powering the cold storage for the products. Also, we recover the natural gas that comes with the water. It is dissolved in the water. We burn it in CHP in order to produce electricity and additional thermal power. And from this, from burning the gas, we recover the CO2 and we fully use it in the greenhouse. So we also have a circular economy in our process. So I think the solution we propose and we are using, it's very safe versus climate change and very friendly to the environment.
Yeah, it's an interesting point on the circular economy as well, because that's another driver that investors also are looking for, you know, ways to invest. Mofdy, moving on to you from an open field perspective, you know, how have you been navigating through climate risk in your own operations?
Climate usually affecting plants, the first thing get affected is the roots, not the leaves or the stems. If you look at the old-fashioned techniques of farming in desert land, is basically some other material has been used, wouldn't keep the roots in a healthy condition, regardless if the temperature outside is 45 degrees Celsius or even 50 degrees Celsius. So once you maintain the root system by using new technologies and maintaining good irrigation system, climate control wouldn't be as harsh as when the roots are suffering. So basically, with our technology, I'm talking about climate change's challenges, we never faced any severe issues related or side effects or an extra effects on planting, on harsh climate, because the root system maintained wet, moist all the time, and that results in good farming. However, it's not only that the issue. the more we have open field farming, the more we attract rain. So we have 75% of the rain goes in oceans and seas, while in sandy area it wouldn't rain that much. So it's challenging, but somebody have to start somewhere, and to start somewhere is to start to increase, scale up big time farming on desert land and farming and open field, even in desert land.
Yeah, it's interesting because your numbers really showcase that when we think about food security, we're really also looking at energy security. We're looking at water security. And you had seen 50% reduction, I think, in water usage in open field farming as well. We could talk a little bit about how Hundzsoil is helping with that.
Okay, actually the 50% you're talking about is very well documented in several international institutions for research, which is basically, we have a product that have a water holding capacity is 400% at 50 degrees Celsius or at 124 Fahrenheit. That technology, as I mentioned earlier, have 8 patents, and just because we change actually the segregated density of the matter, meaning if you see the sponge, a sponge that big, that used for several purposes, it's basically made out of piece of rubber that much. So our product made by a technology that inflated the size of the particle of the organic matter, which into a different size, and that will absorb water and retain it for 4 to 6 days under any condition, because we're talking about under the ground where is the root area, and that's why we achieve 50% in water save, water application compared to what's been happening before 2008. And that result in what? Result that we can farm any land, no matter what. Sand, desert, we can apply our product, 2-3 application, and it's a fertile land and holding water better than clay soil.
That's interesting. So scalability across any type of land is pretty incredible. And then energy security, Horia, you talked about this with the geothermal usage. Can you highlight a little bit more about how you're looking at the energy component as you're further addressing the food insecurity problem?
Yeah, so I think energy security, but also water security has become important. So I would add to the topic this, because water is becoming more and more scarce, and that's why I'm advocating for the greenhouse system, which are using far much more or less water than in the traditional open field agriculture. And talking about energy, energy is an important component in a greenhouse. It's the largest OPEX component in running a greenhouse. And the geothermal solution is, from our point of view, maybe the best for this operation, because it's a base load energy, it's available 24/7, it's predictable, it doesn't depend on the weather or time of the day or of the year, and you have a cost that it's very less dependent on external factors. So you have predictability in terms of cost. So ensuring a solid energy base, it's important, and we think that through our systems we secure that for a greenhouse operation.
Got it. And Horia, just a quick follow-up, sticking to you for a second. With you being based in Romania, are there government subsidies that are helping to support this growth and the scalability?
Yeah, actually, the largest, I will just give you an example just to understand the size. It is a capital intensive industry, We have a project of 50 hectares of greenhouses in 2 locations, 20 plus 30. We have 15 wells, geothermal wells, that can generate over 80 megawatt of thermal power to heat the greenhouse, to supply the greenhouses. And the replacement cost of the wells, the value of the wells would be around 80 million euros. And in order to build the power plants and the greenhouses, another 130 million. But on this 50 hectares, with the technology we are talking about, you can buy with this money, you can secure 37 million EBITDA from the operations. But the main point is to do the initial investment, which is very high. Unfortunately, in Romania, there is no support for the initial investment in a greenhouse. It's maximum 2 million euros per project, irrespective of the size of the project. But fortunately, there are subsidies for the geothermal power plant, not for new wells, because the geological risk is something governments do not accept when you drill new wells. But you can get subsidies for building the power plant, the piping and the heat exchangers, the heat pumps that you employ in such a power plant. And on top of that, there is right now available a subsidy of 30,000 euros per year per each hectare of greenhouse.
Is that specific to Romania?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is specific to Romania. All these programs are local programs, but supported by European Union.
Got it. So Robert, as I think about some of the challenges, well, first of all, the positives. I mean, we just talked about this massive food insecurity problem. We have technologies, IP, we have scalability potential, we have impact numbers. Everything sounds like it's moving in the right direction, but then from a headwind side of things, you're seeing things in the markets from how other countries are reacting with respect to their own subsidies, but also we have this headwind with the politicization in the US. Are these continued headwinds that you think will impact scalability?
Look, I think the biggest headwind is execution. And also, in this industry, right, you're dealing with biological assets, right? So you're not manufacturing cars. Plants can get diseases. There's various supply chain issues, that can impact anything from, the delivery of liquid CO2, which, you often need to use to enrich the environment for higher yields. Like there are a lot of supply chain issues and a lot of different kind of agronomy and biological issues and simply operational issues. I mean, running a greenhouse business, running any kind of a farming company, there are probably like 50 to 100 things that you have to master, right? And it is very operationally intensive, and we've had to learn that, building our organization actually over the years. So I think, yes, it's a capital-intensive industry. We're always fundraising for expansion. Yes, access to capital is an issue, and it hasn't been the easiest time the last few years to do that. However, I think that it's also an opportunity for management teams and leaders in this space to really hunker down and think about how can they deliver on, profitability. Because investors are looking for profitability. So I think you can point fingers and you can have excuses of that, there's geopolitics, it's, macroeconomic environment, whatever, climate change, whatever that is. But in the end, you need to kind of think about, executing and delivering. So
I would imagine site location is another big part of this story,
exactly.
Right?
If you look at our company, for example, we're actually 5 businesses in one. We need to find land, and we do the design engineering work, project management and construction. We then have the whole agronomy piece and agricultural operational element. We have then sales and marketing of produce under a brand. We have a whole financial element related to fundraising and needing, to engage with capital markets. There's also then, I think we'll probably get to that later, a whole technology element of, you're collecting all of this data, within, the system, and how can you leverage that, right? To make things more efficient. So it's not just, producing food. There's like 5 different, elements in one house that you have to do really well to have a profitable company.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the areas that we touched upon, biodiversity, of course, is such a big consideration. We briefly talked about agrivoltaics. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but it's a dual use of land for, from an energy standpoint as well as for food production. And Horia, you had some thoughts on agrivoltaics. Do you anticipate that's the future?
Yeah, it's a thing that sounds nice, but it also has to make economic sense. This is my point. So, of course, if you are in the middle of nowhere and you need electricity, you don't have other source, so the best solution is to install some solar panels to get the electricity that you need. So this is based on needs. Also, the technology has advanced. So, for instance, to produce 1 megawatt of solar, you need less land than you needed 10 years ago. So, the efficiency of the solar cells have increased tremendously lately. So, the pressure is not that big from this point of view. So. And also you can put on the top of your greenhouse, you can put solar cells to produce some electricity, but that comes at a cost in terms of the light that gets into your greenhouse. The situation is different here versus Europe, for instance. Here you have a lot of sun. Maybe it helps. It's also a matter of location. I'm not a big fan myself of this, and I think it's better to do each of them separately in the best way possible, but there are situations in which using agrovoltaics helps the overall thing.
Got it. So we just have a couple minutes left, so I want to close on one quick lightning round, but a very important question. We know AI is going to be massively disruptive to the overall controlled environment agriculture. And so if we think about the future, if you had to pick one AI use case or tool, which I know can be hard, there's a lot to choose from: data collection, climate control, energy, water optimization, nutrient delivery that you mentioned earlier, Robert, or satellite imagery or IoT sensors, which of those technologies, use cases, do you think is the future to help drive scalability to solve, for food systems today? Question for each of the panelists. Robert, I'll start with you.
So this is something that we're actually working on, and we see a massive opportunity, is having a digital agronomist or a digital grower. So every single grower has some kind, what they call a sparring partner, like a crop consultant or someone, that they interact with on a day-to-day basis to identify, any issues in a greenhouse, fertilizer mixes. There's so many different, decisions that are required. What we're doing is we've been collecting data for the last 8 years from our climate computer system. We have thousands of sensors measuring temperature, humidity, CO2, fertilizer mix, yield, and also WhatsApp chats, basically, and communication, for 8 years among all of the growers, right? And so we're able to use all that data, train, a model that can actually then advise our growers in real time on how they can optimize, right, decisions and plant management. So that's like one big example that we're working on.
Perfect. Horia?
Yeah, I fully agree with Robert says, because each operation is different from the other, because the climate conditions differ, everything, the temperature, the cyclicity, the level of light. So creating a database and using and teaching actually your system, it's very important, because otherwise, in a high-tech greenhouse, a high-tech greenhouse is already a quite intelligent body that learns from a lot, that collects information from a lot of sensors, but putting it in context, so conditions versus yield you obtain from this, and keeping track of the history and helping your system learn more about the operation. I think this is the future.
And Mofdy, if you want to close this out,
Sorry?
if you want to close out with your final
Yes. Countries always invest on infrastructure, bridges, roads, sewage, stuff like that. But I see this part of the world was way behind in investing in infrastructure of food production, which, as I mentioned earlier, the only future for the world to farm 130 million acres with 1 billion cubic meter of water is to start to invest in infrastructure of the real food production, which is the essential thing, like what we said, bread and butter. Bread and butter wouldn't come except from wheat, corn, alfalfa, potatoes, and the majority, and you know what? Cotton. You need cotton, and we need to have this part of the world where I came from is basically to invest more in building a real infrastructure for a sustainable environment, sustainable food production, sustainable rain collecting. And you know what? I want to tell you something. With our new technology, you can make a country like UAE, or what's left of it, more green than the Netherlands in 4 years. That's not a joke. That's not a funny statement. That's science and reality.
Yeah, and to end on that, AI quantification of impact is critical, obviously, to what I do, but you can't manage what you can't measure. So I want to thank the panelists for their excellent insights on solving the food systems crisis, and hopefully we'll see some scalability and more disruptive technologies from them soon. I want to just give them a quick round of applause here. And